Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, we have with us today the 55th governor of the state of New York, always on standby, except at Newark Airport, and the Honorable David A. Paterson. Thank you, Governor.
Always good morning, Rabbi. Good morning, Reverend. It's great to be with both of you.
Good to have with us. Do me a favor, Rabbi. You've got to emphasize the, okay? When you announce his name, it's the 55th governor.
Just call him the
state of New York.
It sounds great.
THE, the.
It sounds
well,
great.
I tell you, he came in during a critical time and was given a total of, 22 minutes to get ready for this position?
Just about.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
He is a wonderful human. Why am I talking in the third person? You are a wonderful, human being. We're happy to have you. I wanted to ask you something. When you were governor, you've held some positions. Did you have a person in your administration that would say no to you, like, you can't do this? I mean, I find there are some leaders who are comfortable having that person who is the gatekeeper, and there are others who don't.
I had people under me who were candid. They would tell me exactly what they thought. But I also had people under me who didn't tell me things that I should have known. So, for instance, Reverend, when the morning that or it was in the afternoon, that day, March 10th of 2008, the Spitzer people, none of them came to work in Albany. They weren't in their offices. Now, they were on the second floor. That's, where the governor's offices are. My office as lieutenant governor was on the third floor, so I'd have no idea what was going on the second floor.
The lieutenant governor has an office?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. It's right next to the restroom. So some of my staff members noticed that nobody from Spitzer's office has come to Albany today. So they start bothering him about it. And finally, I'm not sure, but one of the Spitzer people told one of my people, listen, the governor is probably going to have to resign today. He was caught with a prostitute. Don't tell the lieutenant governor. The governor will tell him himself. Blah, blah, blah. And my staff decided to listen to Spitzer's staff, who had no authority over them. And so when it came out, what actually had happened, it was very difficult for me because it all came out at once. Whereas had I known how it was developing, I would have handled the situation differently. So, yes, I had people who would tell me, no, there's no way, you can't do that. But I also had people who would think for me, because if they really thought as me, they would know, you work for the lieutenant governor, he's going to be governor in a few hours, you tell him, even if you swear him to secrecy. And that was, it happened a number of times. That was a big problem.
Why?
I think that I'm just going to respond to that,
sure.
Rabbi, because I think that one of the problems is that insecure leaders tend to be easily intimidated by competent subordinates. But mature leaders, secure leaders, they surround themselves with the best. They want to hear what's good and what's bad about their ideas, their proposals, their opinions. That, for me, is a sign of a secure leader. What say you, Governor?
Well, for instance, there was a gentleman who worked for me. He was very active in Long Island, and he came up with a plan for how to reduce not just the taxes, but the resources that people on Long Island had. And, some of my other staff members, the budget people and that kind of thing rejected what he was talking about. But we implemented it, and I think in the end everybody realized that he stood up for that point of view, which I didn't totally understand at first, but it was sustained. And I think you're absolutely right, Reverend. I've worked for people who were so insecure, you just had to be really careful with anything you said to them.
Right.
Like,
right.
They said, I'm not going to wear any clothes to work tomorrow. You would have to say to them, well, you can do that, but, it actually looks more interesting if at least you wear your underwear, because that way, it's a combination, But there really were people who I worked for who they didn't seem to be able to handle the authority that they had. And they discharged it by hurting people and insulting people.
So you can't really be fully successful, if you're immature, as the Rev says, or if you're afraid to take criticism, you're afraid to have someone that says, no, I know a mayor, I'm not going to mention the name of the mayor, but one day he said to his one of the trusted aides, that event we have at 12 o'clock, I'm not going. I'm just tired, I got other things to do, I'm not going. He said, Mayor, you're going. He says, no, I'm not. He says, Mayor, we'll get the car downstairs, you're going. And he ended up going. And he valued that person because that person was looking out for his best interest.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that's what, I don't understand. I guess it's hard to overcome immaturity, but you're not going to serve the people properly if you don't have someone who says that's a bad idea.
In my case, there were people who had worked for me who were telling me to resign during this period in 2010 when I was being investigated. And honestly, if I thought it was going to come to anything, I would have resigned. But I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. I knew they couldn't have any evidence of me doing anything wrong. And so I hung in there. Now, at a certain point, I realized that the amount of time I was devoting to my own defense was taking away from the people of the state of New York. So I announced that I wasn't going to run for re-election. And that relieved all the pressure. And then I could go ahead and really, manage the budget the way I had the 2 years previously. There was only one situation. One legislator called up and said, you really should resign now because I'm worried about how the budget's going to pass. I said, well, I've got plenty of time. I could pass the budget and, defend myself in an investigation at the same time. So I already took some of the time off. And this person continued to argue with me. And I won't say their name over the air, but their initials were John Lou. And I thought it was about the most ignorant request I ever got in my life when I was governor.
Rev?
I'm just saying, it's important that you trust those you put under you to help shoulder the weight and responsibility of your leadership. But at the same time, there are occasions where you have to follow your gut. And, even if it's not understood or appreciated, you do what you have to do, what you feel deeply inside to do. So kudos to you, Governor, for understanding that and moving forward with that. But, if a leader is not secure in themselves, in their identity, in their capacity. I never forget, I was in D.C. at a breakfast for a new Supreme Court judge and who was being celebrated. And one of the guests got up and he was introduced and he said, I just want you to know that I've been at this for a while and I have 5 PhDs. And then he proceeded and he said, I brought them with me. And he introduced 5 of his staff members. See, that's the way you do it.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
the way you do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm jealous.
By the way, you didn't have as I remember, you did have access to a plane wasn't a Qatari plane, am I right?
No,
Uh-oh,
no,
uh-oh.
and it wasn't given to me by a family. It was by the
Well, Rev, we want to ask about that.
people of the
I
state
was
of
gonna
New
ask
York.
him, no.
Yeah.
The
What do
people
we
of the
say
state
to
of New
that?
York. It was the
Yeah.
state plane
Well,
that the
what-
governor
well,
used.
But what do we say to that, Governor? Because during the debate, right, with Hillary Clinton, President Trump rebuked Hillary for taking money from Qatar because they were supporters of terrorism. And here we have, him accepting a plane and a $5.5 billion golf course deal. How do we respond to that?
Well, it's funny you'd ask me because I'm going to Qatar shortly. So I'll be back here next Sunday and
Let me know what
give you an
kind of deal
answer on
you
that,
got.
Reverend, because there's a business situation that I'm in. I've never been there before. It should be quite exciting.
He's opening up a golf course there.
Yeah.
Of course, of course, of course, of course.
But I tell you what bothers me, in line with what the Rev said, we have a problem with Qatar funding courses on campuses. And there's been a movement to say, we're not going to accept Qatari funding because they support terrorism. They try to open departments or get teachers, professors in there that are really preventing a biased view when it comes to the Middle East, especially Israel. It's pretty hard to do that now if you're taking a plane.
Well, let's wait and see if, because of the way the courses are organized, if President Trump will have the same fiercity about stopping it as he had about, canceling Black History Month and these other things that he's done. That it really. See, I think what's wrong right now in our society, and I mean this as a Democrat to Republicans to liberals, conservatives, whatever they call themselves, there's nothing that we agree is wrong. Like, in other words, nothing happens that we all agree is wrong. Now, there was a situation with Democrats involving the guy who got deported to where, Rabbi?
El Salvador?
El Salvador.
El Salvador.
Democrats were coming to his defense, demanding his release. Meanwhile, records came out about the brutalization of his wife by him, how she wished she was out of the marriage, how all these other things he did. And none of these people could stop for 5 minutes to say, you know something? Originally, I thought it was wrong. The White House made a mistake. He was deported. He needs to be returned. But once that additional information came in, anybody, I thought, who still considered to support that is doing it for political reasons. Because if it was their daughter or their sister or their mother who was being abused in that way, they would never stand for it.
We're going to take a break here and come back with more.
Why, Rabbi? I'm just warming up.
Come back with the 55th governor of the state of New York, the Honorable
you.
David A. Paterson. Stay tuned.
Absolutely. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
And we
Now,
are-
I know we had to go for a break. We're back now. So I've got to ask, Governor, look, with your law background, Rabbi with your law background, you went to law school. Does the fact that this guy was abusing his wife have anything to do with the case against him, with the deportation? Is it relevant?
Reverend, as usual, you've read between the lines, and I would have to say, technically, you're right. In other words, this is a domestic issue. He wasn't arrested
She
for
brought
it.
no charges
She
against
brought
him.
no charges against him. And I would say you're right. What I would have done if I was president is I would have sent a judge to El Salvador to have a hearing about this guy, which he would have won because he was deported. We won't say it's illegally, but he was not supposed to be deported. Now he comes back to his home state or city or whatever, and the minute he gets off the plane, I'd have him arrested for domestic abuse. Because the problem with his assaulting his wife and it not affecting the other things he did, as I see it, is a moral crisis, not a legal one.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's a civil
Do we?
civil issue.
Do you think moral issues matter anymore in campaigns when we select leaders? Do you think morality comes into the picture anymore?
I think that it did until candidate Trump in 2016 had that interview with Bush. What was his name?
Billy Bush. Yeah,
Billy Bush. And the things that he said and the things that went on there, I thought he was a dead duck the first week of October. Somehow, some way, he said, that was locker room talk or whatever it was, and he won the election that year. That was when I thought that the moral issues swarming around candidates had been reduced considerably. And so, now, people have done a whole lot of things, and their supporters are like, oh, well, look, he had a bad day, that kind of thing. But I think as a country, as a nation of people who are fair-minded, and I think who believe in some sort of higher power, that we have to see that. We have to look at it disdainfully. How did we get here?
Yeah, and that's an unfortunate thing because morals serve the purpose, both personal and collective purposes, moralities and morals. And when we downgrade our values and lower our standards morally, our nation, our society is in line for decay. I mean, what do we do? It affects social cohesion, stability, justice, fairness, individual integrity, character. All those things come into play
Well,
when we lower our moral standards.
we're in a bad place as faith leaders when morality becomes insignificant. I mean, what have we been talking about throughout our lives, on the pulpit, off the pulpit? There's got to be a moral code. There has to be, a moral compass. When that goes out the window, what do we say? Do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Do we throw that whole issue aside?
I thought one of the unfortunate situations that came up in 2015, right before President Trump ran for his first presidency, was when Pope Francis was saying that he didn't like our policy in this country about immigration, which Trump was very negative toward it. And Trump talked about him as if another candidate had said something like this. If you want to say someone's a jerk or they don't know what they're doing, that kind of thing, you can say that to another candidate. But he showed no respect for the position of the Pope to have that point of view. All he had to say is, listen, I'm sure that this reflects the wishes of the Pope and how he feels about these things, but I have to advise the Pope that we're in such a difficult situation in our country right now, we have to head in a bit of a different direction. He could have gotten out of it, but he couldn't resist insulting someone, and he went to the apex of leadership to do it.
And isn't that the problem? Because morals are our foundational principles. They guide human behavior. We have to have this idea of right and wrong shaping our decisions, our actions, our interactions in society. Uh, I'm concerned. I'm glad we're having this kind of conversation because on the ground, I think that our population understands the need for moral standards, but somehow we've been willing to put it aside for political power.
And I must say, for fear of retribution, that this is not just people who happen to be registered Republican or have a conservative ideology. There is just as much. I mean, I thought that the conduct of the people who were supporting the gentleman who wound up in El Salvador, some of the things they said in support of him were outrageous. And it's hard to win a case or win the public's trust saying things like that really would have no place. Or if the other side said it, they would be frothing at the mouth to criticize them.
Governor, I want to ask you something. You know about the many, many protests on campus, particularly anti-Israel, pro-Hamas, pro-death of Jews. Why is it that a number of people, and I would say Democrats, were invisible, were not to be heard, seen on those campuses? Wouldn't it make sense when kids are under attack, when kids are being assaulted, when they're denied access to classrooms, all the violations, of their civil rights, wouldn't you expect both parties to stand there?
I compare it to the people who lived in the Deep South in the late 50s and 60s who stood by and allowed things to go on during the civil rights movement that should never that they should never have ignored or treated a situation that was that important. I have I went to Columbia University, and Columbia University, springtime is protest time. It can be over the war in Vietnam, the lavatories in the dorm rooms. It could be an important issue or just no issue at all, but it's almost like your degree from Columbia allows you to have had these demonstrations about things. Now, what is bothering me is, where is this hatred coming from? Where is this predilection for violence coming from? Where's it coming from? And it seems to me, after October 7th, the fact that there were protests about what the Israelis did after October 7th, when you're telling me that if somebody invaded your house and killed family members and you had a gun, you wouldn't go after them? I don't understand it. And the in a lot of ways, what went on in the South was really a reflection of years of segregation. Once they kind of got some of the Southerners to realize we're not doing that anymore, you don't hear about that kind of stuff going on in the Deep South anymore. But this is a different situation. I feel like this could go on forever if we don't find a way to teach our young people how to disagree without becoming violent, hateful, all the things that were done to the people who were marching, and some of the people who were on that campus were not totally in sync with the view of that administration or even our United States government, and they themselves got attacked because the people who were doing it didn't know the difference.
Governor, keep in mind the City Council of New York couldn't find the moral strength to condemn Hamas for what happened October 7th.
Well, I'll do it for them.
But it's a pretty sad commentary on, lack of leadership, lack of courage. I don't know. I don't even think it takes much courage, does it, to condemn what happened October 7th? That's something that should be a natural reaction? I
know that I've spoken out on it a lot. No one has confronted me personally about what I said. So that's the good news.
Right.
The bad news is that there are others who've drawn a furious reaction for doing that, and that's reprehensible.
How much, Governor, do you think the people who are involved in these protests are sincerely concerned about the issue as opposed to just being a part of something?
I think in the beginning, it was being a part of something. It's like I was saying, it's the annual protest period at Columbia. It starts right after spring break. But what I think happened is because of the reaction to it, it then started to harden the viewpoints of some of the students and the outside agitators who were helping them. One thing I would like to say about the White House coming down on Columbia, they were right. They were right. But I think what they kind of had to understand was that the school was used to these types of protests. You didn't have them going to the extent that they did this time. And frankly, they didn't think it would happen, but it did.
We've come to the end of the program. Governor, I do see that following your, being a student at Columbia, you really become very, very discriminatory in selection. You went to Brooklyn Law School.
No, I went to Hofstra.
You went to Hofstra?
I went to Hofstra.
I heard you went to Brooklyn. All right. Well, that's it. That was a good school. It's a very good school.
No, but I'll take the degree if they'll give it to me.
Rev, thank you.
Great.
Great program today, and always with Governor Paterson. We listen and learn from him.
Great conversation always, Rabbi, and we hope you, our listening audience, have been enriched, educated in the process as well, and feel that, there's something for you to do about what you heard. Till next time, right here on Red Apple Radio Networks, the Rev and the Rabbi. Be well. God bless.
If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor, or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. Micro-tabb.com.